Let's give our praises to the Most High, Yahawah, in the name of His only begotten Son, YAHAWASHI, our Lord and Savior, and the Holy Spirit, which is a Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders of GMS who taught us His truth about the Holy Spirit. Honors to the brothers risking their life and freedom to push the gospel. Peace and blessings to the elect, who consist of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, who make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel. According to scripture and prophecy, the elect would be 1/3 of the Israelites who in these last days are returning back to Yahawah Yahawashi for salvation, while the 2/3 of Israel who don't seek the Lord in time be destroyed with America. And that's all according to prophecy. So we back with another lesson through the mercy of Yahawah Yahawashi. This lesson is going to be titled Yahawah and Yahawashi have power over these plagues. Yahawah and Yahawashi have power over these plagues. And pretty much the plagues will be the troubles, the different forms of judgment that's coming to the earth. Such as, the sword, the famine, and the pestilence, to sum it all up. But we're going to start here real quick. This is Revelation 16:9, very straight to the point. And men were scorched with great heat. This is going into the nuclear destruction. It says, and blasphemed the name of the Most High, Yahawah, and Yahawashi, which hath power over these plagues. And they repented not to give him glory. So even the nuclear destruction, even the second death, the lake of fire, Yahawah and Yahawashi got power over that. And that's going to be the last greatest plague. Also, too, this could be talking about the laser beams from the chariot as well. But the point is, Yahawah and Yahawashi got power over these plagues. So how much more the lesser plagues? Teeth of wild beasts, war, the sword, famine, disease, pestilence. Again, Yahawah and Yahawashi got power over these plagues. And then when we get this in the book of Ecclesiasticus 40, we're going to start at verse 8. Such things happen unto all flesh. So such things meaning bad things. Sword, famine, pestilence, the plagues. It happens to all flesh. Man and beast alike. I always say it, both man and beast. And that is sevenfold more upon sinners. So the plagues, sword, famine, pestilence, that stuff happens sevenfold more upon sinners. So the wicked, obviously Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, but the 2/3 of our people. So bad things happen to all flesh, but it happens every time to sinners. Goes on to say, death and bloodshed, strife and sword, calamities, famine, tribulation, and a scourge. And with that, you can throw the fire. And with that, you can throw the water from the great flood. Any sort of plague or trouble or judgment, you can lump that right here. These things are created for the wicked, and for their sakes came the flood, so to go to water. But yeah, death, bloodshed, strife, sword, calamities, famine, tribulation, scourge, things that's coming to the earth, these things were created for the wicked, not created for the righteous, which would be that 1/3 remnant, the elect, those who are returning back to Yahawah Yahawashi to worship him in truth and in spirit. These plagues were not created for the elect. And we want to let this be known, because the Lord about to kill up almost everybody on the earth outside of the elite, because they going into slavery, and the elect that's going to receive that salvation. And when people start dying from all kinds of forms of plagues and judgments, it's going to seem chaotic. But we got to understand that the chaos that these troubles and plagues are very controlled. So it's going to seem chaotic, but it's really controlled chaos. And really, it's going to seem crazy and all over the place, but YAHAWAH, they're well organized. So ain't nobody going to die that's not meant to die. And we got to remember that it's Yahawah and Yahawashai that have power over these plagues, all of them. And we want to mention this because more information has come out on these incinerators at the ICE detention centers, which I'm going to play this again.
What's going on? A girl on TikTok came on here and said that one of her neighbors received a government contract asking them to install a bunch of incinerators at Alligator Alcatraz. They're installing incinerators at Alligator Alcatraz. Alligator Alcatraz is on indigenous land. It's like protected land. Two, there are migrants. There's people being washed ashore with shackles on. People are finding people on beaches wearing shackles. This is the level that we're at.
So I wanted to show that, but we're going to come back to this. But we're going to go to this video right here. And this is the update. ICE documents mention incinerators being used for medical waste management at detention facilities.
An ICE contract funded by the U.S. taxpayers just ballooned from $10 billion to a $55 billion ceiling. The contract includes medical waste management services and references incinerators being placed in ICE detention facilities. The goal of this is, of course, to speed up Donald Trump's mass deportation agenda. But the mechanism they're using for this expansion is the Worldwide Expeditionary Multiple Award Contract, which was originally designed for military logistics abroad. The $45 billion increase converts the U.S. into a geographic region for expeditionary military-style detention. This is a massive long-term escalation in the government's capacity to pay for detention and deportation logistics with tax money. As for the infrastructure, contractors are tasked with providing soft-sided tent cities capable of housing up to 10,000 people each. As for surveillance and control, the vehicle mandates force protection services, including HESCO, earth-filled defensive barriers, 8-foot-high Conex box walls, and weather-resistant guard shacks. And as for medical and death, the services extend to medical waste management, with specific protocols for biohazard incinerators. Once again, the historical parallels are impossible to ignore here. They are building massive detention facilities where they're housing people who they are detaining without due process or warrants, and in these detention facilities, they are placing incinerators.
So, who are they detaining? Again, the Northern Kingdom.
An ICE
the so-called Native and Latin American people, which make up the 12 tribes. Who's next? The so-called, Black Americans, which make up the Southern Kingdom. When we look at this chart.
Funded by the U.S. taxpayers just ballooned from $10 billion.
So who do you think the incinerators are going to be for? It's going to be for the 12 tribes, the people they've been targeting this whole time. Because an incinerator, traditionally, it's something you could put trash in and it burns the trash to reduce waste in a safe space. But they calling it medical waste management. Also, he said they building detention centers, tent cities that can hold 10,000 people each. Now, I don't know how many of these super detention centers and tent cities they building, but keep in mind, with all these people, thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions of people, they plan on rounding up. They got to feed these people every day, provide clean drinking water. People are going to need to shower. People going to have need medicine and medical services. They're not going to take care of all these people. They're going to burn them. Which this ain't about deportation anyway. As we've been saying, this is about the extermination of the 12 tribes, referred to as Jacob's trouble in the scriptures. So this is about the elimination of the 12 tribes. And they got this stuff Esau the white man got this stuff all planned out and well thought out. But we got to keep in mind what the Lord said. Death, bloodshed, strife, sword, calamities, famine, tribulation, and scourge, these things are created for the wicked, and for their sakes came the flood. So as long as we return back to YAHAWAH, we ain't got nothing to worry about. Because yeah, they building, these detention centers and these incinerators, but if the Lord finds us righteous, these incinerators not gonna be able to harm us. They're not gonna be able to do nothing to us. But keep in mind, they calling it medical waste management. So people that had diabetes maybe need, different kinds of medication, whether it be physical or for mental reasons, or somebody's handicapped, elderly, sick. They gonna burn these people. And it's not gonna stop there. They gonna just be burning people all together anyway. And those believers in YAHAWAH, with the understanding of the scriptures, this should be something we expect to come face to face with. So I want to come back to this real quick, and I want to point out a few things. So look at this here. Hold on. Fuck the sound at.
TikTok came on here and said that one of her neighbors received a government contract asking them to install a bunch of incinerators at Alligator Alcatraz. They're installing incinerators at Alligator Alcatraz. Alligator Alcatraz is on indigenous land. It's like protected land. Two, there are migrants. There's people being washed ashore with shackles. People on beach.
One more time. Okay, right here. So let's look at these incinerators. So let's say they were only gonna dispose of, dead bodies. It seemed like the incinerators would be flat, somewhat like in the shape of a coffin. The point is, these are stand-up incinerators. So these not meant to burn dead bodies. These are meant for people to stand up in. So they gonna be burning people alive. They just include it in the budget as medical waste management because Esau the wicked. But they're gonna be burning people alive because you can't stand up a dead body and it'll slump over. You won't be able to make best use of the space. But again, these are stand-up incinerators. And what proves it, they got the different height. These are probably the adult, 6 feet and above incinerators. This would probably be, for children up to 5 feet or whatever. And I think they had bigger ones on the other side of this. But these are stand-up incinerators in the different heights that proves it. These are stand-up incinerators. They're going to be burning people alive for many different reasons. But overall, this is about the elimination of the 12 tribes. Again, these are stand-up incinerators. People going to stand up in these and be burnt alive. That's what they're trying to do. And for more reasons, those on the red and black list, those who refuse the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip, those who don't go along with Esau's agenda in his new world order, those who provide any kind of resistance, those who speak out against this. This probably one of the many methods they're gonna use to depopulate, which we know the Georgia Guidestones. Esau want to maintain population under 500 million. So according to the world's population, they got to eliminate 7.5 billion people. And if this was really about eliminating waste and trash, why they ain't been using these in America? You got trash islands, paper and plastics all over the damn place, but they calling it medical waste management. This is for burning people. If it's medical and waste management, they don't even got these at the hospitals. But again, these are for people because they're stand up with different heights. And matter of fact, we're going to jump here real quick. We're going to come to the book of Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be done. And that which is done is that which shall be done. There was no new thing under the sun. So we know they was burning people before. When you look in the scriptures, in particular the book of Daniel, the Lord said that which is done is that which shall be done. So it's going to happen again. It says, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? When people really faced with this, mind gonna be blown. But can you say this is new? It have been already of old time, which is before us. And most of us familiar with the book of Daniel, but people look at the scriptures as if those are the Bible things, not realize that through reincarnation, people come back in the earth and do the same things. And what's back in the earth? These furnaces used for exterminating, the saints, the 12 tribes. Because ancient Babylon was doing this. And what is America? It's modern day Babylon, spiritual Babylon. But we're going to come to the book of Daniel now. But keep in mind, men were scorched with great heat and blaspheme the name of YAHAWAH YAHAWASHI, which have power over these plagues. So even the very fire in these furnaces, these incinerators, because that's what they are, they furnaces. Yahawah Yahawashi got power over that, over who the fire burns and who the fire has no effect on. And the Lord showed us this in the book of Daniel. That's why the book of Daniel was written. It wasn't for entertainment. It wasn't for a campfire story. But let's get it very straight to the point. Daniel 3 and 14, Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? These are the Babylonian names. It says, do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up. Now, if ye be ready, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye should be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. That's what this is. That's why the flame on it. It says, and who is that God? And the heathen kings often do this. Who is Yahawah? Who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? So this is opening up the opportunity for the Lord to introduce himself, because he pretty much saying, who is Yahawah? Who is Yahawashi? They shall deliver you. Hey, now the Lord got to introduce himself. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said unto the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. So YAHAWAH YAHAWASHI, he can deliver us from this. And he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. It says, but if not, meaning if the Lord don't deliver us, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. And this is the same mindset we should have going into the, really now, but dealing with the hour of temptation. The Lord can deliver us from the fiery furnace, being put to death, by the teeth of wild beasts, like being threw in the pit of lions or bears or crocodiles, alligator Alcatraz, even these furnaces, or the guillotine, or the firing squad, or whatever else Esau gonna try to, scare us with. We're gonna let them know, YAHAWAH will deliver us, but if not, we not getting your microchip anyway. We not following none of your other mandates anyway either. So you might as well do what you're gonna do. Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 17 times more than it was wont to be heated. So they turned the fire all the way up. And that's playing out now, because in this lifetime, the fire here gonna be way hotter than the fire during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. So that's like the Lord fulfilling this once again, the fire being turned up 17 times. And we gonna show what we mean that the fire is turned up. Just to say it now, this ain't gonna be regular fire. This is gonna be nuclear powered fire. Pretty much not to burn the bodies, but vaporize them, turn them to dust. Nuclear fire. Goes on to say, and he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. See that? These are stand-up incinerators, stand-up furnaces. People gonna step into these alive. And then, matter of fact, I'm curious about something. Let me see. I want to see her open them real quick.
Asking them to
See
install
that?
a bunch of
Okay, so you see these holes in the incinerator. This is probably a catch for the dust. The dust can fall through, and they can load them up. They can make some more people step in, vaporize them. The dust fall through. This where the holes at. You can probably lift it up and sweep out the dust. Then some more people step in, because people gonna go in here alive and be dusted. It says, therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they turned up the fire, and the fire burnt the men that threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in there. So that's Revelation 16:9. Yahawah and Yahawashai, which have power over the plagues. Here it's talking about fire, not from a furnace, but a greater fire. So if the Lord got power over this greater fire, how much more a furnace, even if it's nuclear powered? But the Lord, they got power over all the plagues. If we are the righteous, the elect, was killing and deleting everybody else, ain't gonna have no effect on us. These three men, I'm gonna get 22 again. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the fiery furnace. So they got through in. It's bad enough they got through in there, but they tied them up and threw them in there. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste and spake and said to his counselors, did not we cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, true, O king. He answered and said, lo, I see 4 men loose walking in the midst of the fire. They have no hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the Son of the Most High. So yeah.
Raiders at Alligator Alcatraz. They're installing incinerators at Alligator Alcatraz. Alligator Alcatraz is on indigenous land. It's like protected land.
So you see this. So yeah, If we of the elect, if we are that righteous remnant, Esau can make us go into these incinerators. But don't be surprised if they try to throw us in here, they turn up the fire, then they open it up, and we still in here. The fire got no effect on us. And then not only that, they open it and they find YAHAWASHI himself, or another holy angel, a son of God, in the furnace, in this incinerator with us. So that's why the Lord had this recorded, because it's something that's going to come back here at the end. Again, this was ancient Babylon. America is Mystery Babylon, the daughter of Babylon. This is Babylon part 2. So the trouble's going to be all the way turned up. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. So imagine that. People being vaporized in these furnaces. We step in, they cut the fire up, they open it, they see us in there with an angel. And then we step out the fire with the fire still burning. And the princes and governors and the captains of the king's counselors being gathered together saw these men upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their hair singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. So the fire had no effect on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And that's again Revelation 16:9. The name of God, Yahawah and Yahawashi, have power over the plagues. Oh, and Yahawashi spoke about that when he was walking on the water. And I believe Peter tried to step out, or something. That might have been a storm. And then the Lord said, peace, peace be still. And then it said the disciples marveled at Yahawashi. They said, what manner of man is this, that even the seas and the wind obey him? So yeah, even the waters and the wind and the fire obey Yahweh Bahashim Yahawashi. You see, that's that they call them wildfires. The fire is not wild. The fire is doing exactly as commanded. Yeah, it's burning up everything because it's obeying the orders of Yahweh Bahashim Yahawashi. Again, the disciples said, what manner of man is this, that even the waters and the wind obey him? You could throw the fire in there as well. So right here, this is an example of the fire obeying Yahawashi. Because how is it? It didn't burn up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Not a hair was singed. They didn't smell like any smoke or any fire had been on them. But it burnt up the king's mighty men. When it says the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it burnt them men that threw them in there, but it had no effect on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's the fires obeying Yahawashi. He got power over the plagues. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any God except their own God. But yeah, showing that Yahawashi, Yahawashi got power over the plagues, the famine, the teeth of wild beasts, even Esau's weaponry, even Esau's weapons. The Lord got control over those. Even, the bullets, the nuclear missiles, all that obey Yahweh Bahashim Yahawashi. So Yahweh Bahashim Yahawashi decides what bullet takes out who, what missile burns up who gets hurt from it, who dies from it, who's not affected at all by these things. That's under the commandment of Yahweh Bahashim Yahawashi. Now let's prove that this is what this is for. They stand up incinerators first of all. You got to keep that in mind. Now let's go here to the King Alfred plan, codename Rex 84. We're gonna jump around briefly. I'm gonna probably get one thing off of each page. It's 4 pages long. King Alfred. In the event of widespread and continuing and coordinated racial disturbances in the U.S., King Alfred, at the discretion of the president, is to be put into action immediately. So civil unrest, race wars, riots. Once things become uncontrollable, Rex 84, King Alfred plan, is going to be put into effect immediately. Participating federal agencies, participating state agencies, participating local agencies. So state and local agencies, I forgot the word they use, but they're going to be federalized, meaning under the correct control of the federal government and the president of the United States. I'm going to probably get something off of here real quick. Demonstrations and rioting have become part of a familiar scene. Troops have been called out in city after city across the land, and our image as a world leader severely damaged. Our enemies press closer, seeking the advantage, possibly at a time during one of these outbreaks of violence. This is the point. The minority has adopted an almost military posture to gain its objectives, which are not clear to most Americans. It is expected, therefore, that when those objectives are denied, the minority, the racial war must be considered inevitable. When the emergency comes, we must expect the total involvement of all 22 million members of the minority, men, women, and children. For once this project is launched, its goal is to terminate, once and for all, the minority threat. So they know in the race war, they're going to be outnumbered and outmatched. And the goal is, when that happens, is to terminate, once and for all, the minority threat. How do you terminate a threat? It means you're going to execute them. You're going to exterminate them. Terminate once and for all the minority threat to the whole American society and indeed the free world. Then they got the different FEMA regions, which your zip code is based off of. It got different minority organizations, black Muslims, which there's a talk about Muslims worldwide rising up. So you see, black Muslims is number one. So they're going to try to tie us into these terror attacks when these CIA agent sleeper cells get activated. The new Pan-African movement. See that? But I don't see Middle Eastern Muslims on here. I don't see Iranian sleeper cells on here. I don't see Chinese nationals on here. Then you know the focus is the 12 tribes. They come in at the Northern Kingdom soft with the ICE raids and deportations. When they come after the Southern Kingdom, they come in with this King Alfred plan. And we're going to jump down here. An estimated 40 to 50% of white population will not, for various reasons, engage minority during an emergency. The emergency being a race war. Half the white population not going to fight against, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, so-called Middle Easterners, Chinese, etc. Because half of the house of Esau is divided against the U.S. government, probably most of them. American armed forces are spread around the world. Ain't that the case now? War in Ukraine, war with Iran. No telling who's next. War with Venezuela. A breakout of war abroad means fewer troops at home to handle the emergency. Civil unrest, race wars. Local law enforcement officials must contain the emergency until help arrives, though it may mean fighting a superior force. This was the fear of Pharaoh, being outnumbered by the children of Israel, who may join unto the enemies of the Egyptians. America has that same fear. The 12 tribes, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. What if they team up with the Palestinians, the Iranian sleeper cells, the Chinese? Esau the white may be greatly outnumbered. New York City, for example, has 25,000 man police force, but there are about 1 million minority members in the city. I'm thinking they just counting so-called black minorities. But New York, they got way more than 1 million minorities. We are confident that the minority will hold any city it took for only a few hours. The lack of weapons, facilities, logistics all put the minority at a final disadvantage. So, minority groups, they may have a good start, but it's not going to end well for them. Because what they say, lack of weapons. Esau's blessing is a sword. Then it got a timeline by hours on how they can arrest and detain everybody of so-called African and Latin descent. They got it broke down hour by hour. But this is not the focus. Now we getting the point. Survey shows during the 6-year period, production created 9 million objects, or 1.5 million each year. Production could not dispose of the containers, which proved a bottleneck. However, that was almost 20 years ago. We suggest that vaporization techniques be employed to overcome the production problems inherent in King Alfred. The Zero Committee report. We see, Zero Committee report on this timeline on how they would bring order to America by terminating the minority threat. The Zero Committee report, and we're going to read what these 9 million objects were when they suggest vaporization techniques. The Zero Committee report is referring to the problem that occurred in Nazi Germany. See that? That's Ecclesiastes. The thing which shall be, that have been, is that which shall be. No new thing under the sun. When the furnaces were not hot enough to burn the bodies that Hitler had killed. The bodies clogged up the furnaces, thereby causing a problem that the above committee recommends avoiding by building high-volume nuclear-powered incinerators. These are those incinerators.
There are migrants, there's people being washed ashore.
These are those incinerators. They said production for 9 million of them. Recommends building high volume nuclear power incinerators that burn 5,000 degrees. It should be noted that steel melts approximately 2,700 degrees. So these are those high volume nuclear power incinerators. They say the vaporization techniques, because remember they had the little grill at the bottom, where the dust could fall through. See, 3 different sizes, stand-up incinerators. One party goes up to 4.5 feet, one party goes up to 5.5 feet, the other one party goes at 7. So they could be burning people. But that's why when we get this in the book of Jeremiah in the NLT, it says, in all history, there has never been such a time of terror. It will be a time of trouble for my people Israel. So we about to witness a time of terror that we've never seen ever as a people. Because during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, one fiery furnace was bad enough. But Esau the white man, they made 9 million of them. Then remember when it said Nebuchadnezzar turned the fire up 1 in 7 times? Well, these are nuclear fire incinerators. So that's like the fire being turned up here at the end. 5,000 degrees. So not one furnace, but 9 million of them. Not a regular fire, but one that burns at nuclear temperatures. That's why the scriptures say, in all history, there's never been such a time of terror. It would be a time of trouble for my people Israel. People not gonna know what to do. They're gonna completely bug out. But this is something we should expect. Something that always happened to our people, and it's about to happen again, but way worse. Yet in that day, they will be saved, and that's the elect. Now we gonna go here as we close out. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, start at verse 73. Then they shall be known who are my chosen, because the fire not gonna have no power over them. The guillotine, teeth of wild beasts, Esau's weapons, whatever you coming with, not gonna have no power over the righteous, the elect. Then they should be known who are my chosen, and they should be tried as gold in the fire, in a literal sense too. Hear, O ye my beloved, that's the house of David, the elect, saith the Lord. Behold, the days of trouble are at hand, and they are now. But I will deliver you from the same. Be not ye afraid, neither doubt, for God is your guide. So you can't be afraid. Lord said, don't be afraid of him and kill the body, because that can throw off your judgment. That can throw off your decision making. Out of fear, you don't want to feel this fire, but you get the microchip. Now your fate is going to be a fire hotter than the first fire. But also understanding that it's the Lord, YAHAWAH that got power over these plagues. The name of YAHAWAH YAHAWASHI, which have power over these plagues. And if the Lord commands the fire to not touch you, you could be in the fire, but the fire not touching you. That's the kind of power we serve. So yeah, this is part 1, Lord willing. That was informative, edifying. Till next time, Shalom.